Hey, welcome. Thank you for joining me. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Python class attributes and static methods. So we'll continue building on the class of dog that we started building in the last video, and we'll add some extra capabilities that makes it easier to perform certain calculations or to figure out certain information about that class of dog as we go to generate additional objects with it. So to get started, let's go and actually build out our class again. So class dog, and we pass it the object parameter. And then inside of there, what we can do is similar to last time, we can add our constructor method, which is our init, and then self. And then we can do print. Hello, I am new here. Okay, so that gets us started or building off what we did last time. The one difference here is instead of just having this with the with self inside of our constructor, I'm actually going to add in a second parameter here called name. And I'll show you how we're going to use that in just a second here. And this will initialize attribute on copy creation. So what we have here is we have an attribute self, and then we have an attribute, we have a parameter name. That name parameter is what we're going to use to create what's called an attribute. It's essentially a property of the dog. So we talked about this before as characteristics. So a class of dog could have a breed, a name, a height, a weight, all these different biographical information or biological information about the animal. And so what we can do is actually each dog that we create is going to have a separate name and all this separate information. So if we made it part of the class itself as a class attribute, when that gets copied, we're essentially going to give it the name automatically that we set for it initially. So if we did something like define init, we could do something like name equals and I guess I don't know, is that a dog name? So if we were to do it just like this, every dog that gets created is going to come already with this attribute name of that equals Ben, but not every dog on the planet is named Ben, right? So how do we account for that? How do we code for that? We essentially want to define something like a name as soon as it's created. So here we're going to pass in name as a parameter to the constructor function. And instead of putting Ben here, we're going to put instead self.name equals name. And this self.name is going to be the attribute of this dog. All right, so it's a self. It gets created when the object gets copied. And this name parameter is going to come from this right here, the constructor function. I'm going to show you how we can use that in just a second. Let's go down here and let's create a new dog. And dog1 is equal dog. And now we can pass in a string. We can pass in something like Ben. And if we did dog1, we can access what the value is of this property, this attribute, by using what dot notation. So dog1 dot name. And I'll just wrap this in a print statement to find out what it thinks dog1 dog name is. Okay, so our constructor function works. It prints out, hello, I am new here. And then down here, it assigns Ben to name, which then gets assigned to the new object as name. So when we do print dog1 dot name, we now have the ability to define a new name for every dog we create. So we can do dog2 equals dog red. And then we can do it on here. We can actually do name dog2 dot name. And it prints out the two dogs' names, Ben and Fred. So that's how we can use attributes inside of here. Now we can do some other cool stuff too. We can actually go and create a new function, define, say, hello. We pass in self as a parameter. And inside here, what we could do is actually do print wolf plus my name is self.name. I'm going to take out this print statement down here with the dog1.name and dog2.name and say we just want to have a built-in method, a built-in function to the class of dog so that we can have, we did this last time, but now we're going to make it a little bit more fancy. We can do dog1 dot say hello. And now when we run this, it should say hello. Wolf, my name is Ben. So we did that with dog1, and we can do the same thing with dog2. Just have a bunch of dogs saying hello. And we see that every time it changes because this self assigns that variable to the object once it gets created. So that's how we can add individual attributes and use them inside of the function and outside of the function. Okay. Now let's talk about the next thing, which is printing an object. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to get rid of dog1, say hello, and dog2, say hello. We'll keep dog1 and dog2 just for a second. Let's find out what the Python interpreter thinks dog1 is. Let's do print dog1. Let's see what it sees. Okay, we're seeing the constructor function happen here, but now down here, the print dog1 is giving us this main dog object. Sometimes you'll see this depending on the editor. It'll give you a memory reference as well too. That will be a series of hexadecimal characters. But ultimately, this is not very helpful. In the main program, there's a dog object. Is dog1 is a dog object. We can actually go and customize that to customize the basically when we print it out. We can tell Python to tell us what that is, or we can customize that message there. So what I'm going to do is right before we did define, say, hello, I'm going to go back into the main program. I'm going to define a new keyword function that's built into Python. And it's just double underscore str, double underscore self. No other parameters being passed in. And here we can do header1 dog object header2 equals a name plus self.name. So here we use that built-in attribute once again. And then we can return header1 plus header2. Oops, no spaces there. Okay. So now what we did is we just basically used another built-in method that goes along with objects, and essentially we get to customize the string that gets printed out to the user, or the developer, I guess, the programmer, that we can customize that message. So it doesn't just give us main dog object. Let's see what it gives us. All right, we can fix this up here. So what we're seeing is that basically we didn't go into a new line, dog object name Ben. We can clean this up a little bit by adding a semicolon there. And I'm thinking that at the end of dog object, we can do \n, and that's a built into like a escape as that and the n is new line. So /n is new line, /tab is \t. But here we see, okay, it's a dog object, and the name is Ben. So we can customize this to print out whatever we'd like when we print that object. So just a handy little thing to make your life a little bit easier later on if you go on to make additional classes. Nifty little thing Python can do. Okay, so that's printing it out. Let's talk about the next thing, which is the adding class attributes. Okay, and so, all right, so here, let's talk about a simple problem here. We have the dogs that are being created, and how do we keep track of them? How do we keep track of to know how many dogs have been created so far? So one way we could do it is if we went to the top and we created like a global variable that was, say, like a total or something like that. And we give it a value of 0, and maybe in every now we have a global variable that's going to kind of clutter our program. But we'd have to go through and every time that the constructor ran, maybe we had to go and grab global, and in order to do that, you have to do something like global total total equals plus equals 1. So here we have a global variable. We get access to that. We change it using the global keyword, and we just could tell Python we're going to use it inside of our class, and then we're going to iterate down here every single time. But I don't necessarily like it because it's separate. This total is a global variable, and even though it's global and we put it on all caps to indicate it's a constant, right? We shouldn't be changing this. There is no hard and fast guarantee that we can't change it just in our program just by doing something like total plus equals 12 or something by accident. And now we've just ruined that variable. Essentially, we made it impossible to know actually where the truth of that variable incrementation is. So I wouldn't advise against that. But what's cool is that I'm gonna get rid of all that. What's neat is that Python gives us the ability to add in what's called a class attribute. And so we don't have to define a global variable and then use it in our program. We can just go simply and add a attribute to our class itself and then iterate that. So what we could do is we could just do something like here. We just do num dogs. So the number of dogs we've created, we'll set it to be equal to 0 initially. And then just like we suggested, we're going to go down to the constructor function. And whoops, that's not the constructor function. This is. We'll go to the constructor function and increase number of dogs. Fine. So it looks good. Okay, so then how do we do that? Well, easy. We go to the dog class. We go and get the num dogs variable, and we increment it by 1. So now every time a new dog is created with a constructor function from this class, it's going to go to the dog class and get the attribute of num dogs, and we add 1 to it. So there's no global variable. There's no way to really change this. Well, there is a way to change it, but we'll talk about that a little more advanced. But there's no way to change it unless you go inside the class to modify it. And so, okay, that let's see, add num dogs class attribute. That's how we can handle that. Let's talk about printing. Okay, so how do we get access to that numdog attributes? There's 2 ways to do it, and the first way is relatively easy. Basically, because that variable, numdogs, is a part of the dog class, we can get access to it the same way we get access to it right up here. We essentially can go down here, and we can say that we can just return a print statement. We can just do print total number of dogs through numdogs attribute is dog.numdogs. I'm going to just move this back a line. Oh, that should, there it goes. Just cleaning up a little bit. So we'll get a print statement that says total number of dogs through the number of dogs attribute is. And I'm going to get rid of print dog1 to hide that. And we'll still have the hello, I'm new here. It has no attribute 1 on line 11. Dogs, numdogs, increase by 1. What am I forgetting here? Dog, numdogs, plus equal 1. Of course it does. String object. Why is it a string object? Numdogs. Okay. So I took a quick break, and this is kind of just going to seem kind of disjointed, but I took a quick break and I tried to figure out what happened here. And I actually spent probably longer than I should trying to figure out what was happening here. And this way of adding a class attribute and iterating it down here is proper code. So I was looking at this and saying to myself, why is this not running? Why is it not working? And so I did a quick test, and I'm using REPL.it here. And with this editor, I created this as a a file that's Python with turtle. I'm not sure exactly what they're using for their turtle editor, but it's not, doesn't seem like it's like a, I don't know what version of Python it's using or an earlier version, or if it's like a modified interface of it, because I did the same program in a regular Python 3.8, whatever version, 3.82 version of Python, and we run it and it runs just fine. So I, I don't know if I tried to figure out some more information on the original one to figure out exactly what's happening here, but I don't know how they configured it on the back end. So for you, if you're using REPL and you're using the turtle, you can just skip this step if you're trying to follow along, or you can comment this out so that it doesn't throw an error. But it's throwing an error here. I'm going to show you how, if you used any other Python editor besides this one, it should work. I'll show you what it would look like running through it, so that you can at least know how class attributes work. So here we have our class dog, our number of dogs variable, and then we iterate it as soon as ones get created. And then down here, all we got to do is print out the number of dogs. Now, every time a dog gets created, we have 2 of them up here. That number will increase. So here we see that it's up to 2. We add dog 3 equals dog. Okay, and we created a third dog. By the time it goes to report, we're now up to 3 dogs. So this is a handy little way of just setting a count variable to keep track of the number of class objects that have been copied and created. So that's just a bit annoying there. The other bit that I would use this for is, or how I could get access to this, is the first way is we went and we just used the number of dogs, number of dogs, to access that property, access that attribute, and print it out. The other way we could structure this code is to actually add what's called a static method. And a static method you're going to be able to identify really easily, because inside of a class, it has an @ symbol. That function is a static method. And what a static method is it's only accessible to the actual class object itself, and not any of the objects that are created as a result of it, or any copies that are made. So what would this look like, and how would we structure it? So what I would do is go below numdogs there, and I would put an @ symbol, and then I would write literally static method. And anything that follows this line is going to be contained to the class object and not get copied. So here I would say we can do define count. We don't pass anything in. And then we can do print, and we can print the same thing that we saw below there, which is going to be the total count of dogs created is, and then we can print off dog.numDogs like we saw. Okay. So there we go. So we are going to access the dog.numDog, the dog object or the dog class, and get the numDogs variable, which is right here. See, it's highlighting. And we're going to then report it out down here. So we use the static method to find that information. And then if we wanted to access that attribute through a method, we could certainly do that. We could just do something like, actually, because it's a method, it has a print inside of it, we could do, actually, I lied on that one. I said that it didn't get copied, and it does get copied. But the difference is, so a static method, does get copied. So we can access it through any of the dogs that we have, right? But actually, let me show you what does get copied here. So if we did print dog1.numDogs, can we access it that way? Will it keep a copy of that inside of there? And we'll hide this one right here. Let's find out. So 3. Okay. How is it able to do that? How is it able to see that? It's a copy of the original. So how does it know? Because the original way we did it is we did a numDogs part of the class, and then when it gets created, we increment that, we increase it, but we increase it on the class, not the object that's created. If we did it on the object that was created, we use the self keyword. And here we did not. We use the actual class name itself. So it's always going to increase the class object. Class object gets created first, and then we have the copies that are made because of it. Okay. So here down here, so we can do dog1.numdogs, but we can also do print. We could do dog dot. Let's do count. Dog.count. We put parentheses there because it is a method. Okay. We see that here. I'm going to hide this one so I can show you. Okay, so this is counting the original ones. We did, no, actually that's that one, right? Dog.count none. Create dogs none. Why is it saying none? Oh, I know why. We're doubling up on our print statement up here. So the actual dog defined count actually does print out that. And so what we're doing is we're printing out the function, and because the function doesn't return anything, it's coming back as none. So we can actually just get rid of that. We just do dog.count and run that function. We go to the dog class and get the count function. And we'll see that it actually prints off. The total number of dogs is 3. And we can do it with all the dogs we created, dog.count. They all inherit that, but they're not, they're only increasing it on the actual parent. So if I did dog.5, or dog5 equals dog, and we'll give it a name, Eva, say. Then we do dog.5.count. Okay, we see the new dog being created, and actually this should have been dog 4, but you get the point. Total count of dogs is 4. So we're missing dog 4. It ran away. But we have dog 5. Oops. So that's good enough. Okay, so that's how we can add a static method that is added to the class. So 2 things we've done here is we've added a variable that can keep track of, or count variable that keeps track of the number of objects being created. And we increase that every single time that a new item is created. And then we also have a count method here that is a static method that will go to that dog class, get that variable, and report it back to us. So there's 2 ways you could access that or keep track of that count variable. We either just go to dog and get it ourselves, or we define a function that uses it. I want to show you can use that inside here and introduce static methods to you. We can use it in here to create a method that everything will inherit, but it will is tied to the class itself. Okay, so that's define count there. Okay, so that's it. We added our attributes, and we access those variables, and inside the class itself, and outside, so we can print them off as we did down here. So that's it for this video. We'll continue with classes in our next one, and I'll see you there.